Hi, I'm Kathy from the Delafield Quilt Company. Today's video is Block 9 from the 2024 Summer Sew Along. If you're interested in sewing along, I've got all the patterns, all of the video links for the past blocks on our website at delafieldquiltco.com. So I do have to say that Block 9 I think is probably the easiest block of all the blocks that we did for this series. And I'm going to show you a really simple way to make the points of the star in this block. Today's block is the last one in the series, but make sure you check out next week's video because then I'm going to pull the whole thing together, show you how I sewed all the blocks, and maybe some ideas on how to expand the size of the quilt. And I am camping while I'm making this video, so I apologize in advance if the sound or the video quality is a little off par. Right, so I've already got all of my pieces cut, and I think you'll find that this is a pretty easy, quick block to put together. And we're going to start with pieces B and D. These are the long strips that are 1.5 inches wide by 12 inches long. And then we're just going to line them up together, right sides together, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch along the long side. And I am doing a scant 1/4 inch. All right, now that I have that sewn, I am just going to press the seams, and I'm going to press the seams open on this one. The reason I'm doing that is because these are going to be cut down. They're going to be really little pieces, so I just want to make sure they lie nice and flat. And I am finger pressing them a little bit first. I just find that's a little bit easier when I'm pressing seams open to finger press it. And I'm just going to take my iron to finish that off. Okay, now that I've got these nicely pressed, I'm going to cut them into 8 sections each. And these sections are going to be 1.5 inches wide. I am being very careful in lining up my ruler lines with the seam of these sections. That way I'm making sure I get a nice straight cut. And again, I'm going to cut 8 from each of these sets. Okay, now that I've got these all cut, I'm going to put them in pairs. So I have essentially a small little 4-patch. And I want to make sure that the colors are just next to the opposite color. So I've got a white next to the green in each of my pairs. Okay, now that I've got all of my pairs, I'm going to again sew these together, making sure I'm lining up these seams real carefully. And then I'm going to do a scant 1/4 inch. And I'm just going to sew one set right after another, right a daisy chain look. Okay, I've got all of my little 4 patches sewn, and I'm just going to cut them apart. You should have 8 total of these. And then I'm just going to press these again, and I'm going to press those seams open. So I'm going to first finger press it a little bit, and that should make it a lot easier for me to then take the iron. And then I'm going to just repeat that with the rest of them. When these are all pressed up, they should measure 2.5 inches square. If yours are turning out smaller, just make sure you're using a scant 1/4 inch. Okay, we're going to need our piece I. These are rectangles that are 4 inches by 6 inches. You should have 4 of these total. And we're going to cut them diagonally from one corner to the other, and just make sure you're using your ruler and you've got that nice and straight. And then we're just cutting them. And then we need piece A, which is a 4.5 inch square and a fabric friendly pen. This is the friction erasable or heat disappearing pen. And we're going to need to put a few marks on this, and then we're going to draw some lines. Our first mark is going to be halfway on one side. I'm going to just make a little mark there. And then on the opposite side, I'm going to use the 1/4 inch of my ruler. And then I am going to make a 1/4 inch mark on both of the top and the bottom of this square. And then using those points, I'm going to draw a line from the middle point to the 1/4 inch on, first I'm doing the left side. I don't think it matters which order you do the sides. But I'm just going to line those up with my ruler, draw the line, And I'm going to go the other side, and I'm going to do the same thing from the middle point of that one side to a 1/4 inch below the other side of the square. I think drawing the lines on this block makes this a real easy piece to make. Kind of takes the guesswork out of it. And then we need our half rectangle triangles from earlier, and we're going to line 2 up here. And the right angles of the triangle should match the squares. And that's how you know you got the right side. And then we're going to flip one side over. We're going to line it up with the line that we drew earlier. And just make sure that you have equal distance on both sides of your triangle. So it should be centered. And I'm just going to grab a pin. So I'm going to pin this in place. And then I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch on the triangle part from the line that we lined it up with. Okay, again, I'm going to use my 1/4 inch foot, line it up to the edge of that pink triangle. And then I'm going to do a scant 1/4 inch. Okay, now I'm going to flip this open, and I'm just going to finger press it. I'm not going to use the iron on this because my ink will fade away, and I still need that line here. And then I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to take the other triangle, make sure I've got it the right way, and then flip it over, line it up to the line that was drawn. Make sure it's centered with about the same space on both sides. And I'm going to pin that in place. And then just like before, I'm going to do a 1/4 inch along the line. Okay, now that that is sewn on, I am going to press it with the iron this time. Okay, now that I've got this pressed, I need to trim this to the size of that white square. So it's 4.5 inches. So I'm going to take my ruler and line it up with the edges of the square at 4.5 inches. And then I am just going to trim off that extra pink. Get those dog ears there. And then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other 2 sides of that square. Now there is some extra fabric with that white that's behind the triangle. I'm not going to trim that away because I feel like the thickness is just fine for this block and it's a little easier. All right, let's get our other little pieces here. These are those little 1.5 inches square and then pattern. They are letters E, F, G, and H. And I'm going to arrange them in a certain pattern. And I'll throw up the chart here so you can see what that looks like. Pretty simple. And you could arrange these whatever way you'd like. This is just the method that I came up with because I thought it looked nice. So I'm just going to finish laying them out. And then I'm going to sew these by rows. And then I'll sew the rows together. Now as I sew this, I did press all the seams open. And now I'm going to assemble the block. I'm going to take our little 4 patches from before and just lay those so that you get that Irish chain look in the corners. And then I need pieces C. These are 2.5 inch squares. I'm just going to put one of those next to each of those 4 patches. Then I'm going to take our pieces that we made with that pink fabric, and there's 4 of those total, and I'm just going to make a star shape out of that. Right, now that this is all laid out, I'm going to sew first the 4 patches, and then in rows, and then I'll sew the rest of the block together. And here's the final block. This one was super simple to make, and I think of all the 9 from our summer series, this was the easiest one for me. Except I did end up having to use the seam ripper a few times because I made a few mistakes. I think I got a little too confident because it was such a simple block to do. I probably wasn't paying as much attention as I needed to. I hope you enjoyed sewing along for Block 9. Next week, I am going to do one more video for this series, and that's just pulling all the blocks together. I'm going to just show you how I laid it out and adding some borders and what the finished quilt looks like. So thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and visit us at delafieldquiltco.com. Have a wonderful day.